Have you lived in survival mode, or maybe you're in survival mode now? I definitely have had those seasons in my life. Hi, I'm Christina, and this is my imperfect wellness adventure. And this is just a place where I like to share ways that I have, found progress in my life. And one of them has been in getting out of survival mode. It's not a fun place to be. It's a place of joylessness and frustration. And so the Bible story that has been just jumping out at me lately, it's been a couple weeks that I've just been mulling it over, is the story of Hagar. And she was back in the Old Testament, there was Abram and Sarah at one point before his name was changed. And she had a servant woman, quote unquote servant, but we know that she was actually a slave from Egypt. And so, that's just how life was back then. And also there was that whole, multiple marriages and having more than one wife. And so Sarah could not have a baby, and they wanted one, and God had promised Abraham to be the father of many nations, and here he had no children. So Sarah had an idea to let her servant woman go and, have relations with Abram and have a baby. And then when she got pregnant, Sarah hated her. And she was really in contempt also of Sarah. And I can imagine she's like, look, when a couple cannot have a baby, there's always the question, who's the one? Is it both of their bodies aren't working, or is one or the other? And so maybe it was Abraham. Maybe he, was sterile and couldn't have children. So when Hagar got pregnant, it was obviously Sarah's issue. And so she had contempt on Sarah, and that caused a lot of, kind of sister wives drama right there. So Sarah started treating her really bad. It said she afflicted her. And so Hagar ran away. And when she ran away, she actually had an experience with God. And I will tell you right now, one of the ways of getting out of survival mode is to have an experience of God, of his grace and his love. And she did. And she actually, I'm not going to go into details. You can read it in Genesis 16. And then again in Genesis chapter 21 is the rest of her story. But she had an experience, and what she said was, this is the God who sees me. So God saw her. It said in the Bible that God saw her. And so when we have an experience with God, to know that he sees us, boy, just the validation of knowing that we are seen. Have you ever experienced the feelings of being invisible? And that's how I'm sure she felt. I'm sure she had a lot of feelings, and fear was one of them. Well, the angel told her, he gave her a promise, the angel of the Lord, which was actually, God. He gave her a promise that her son was going to be actually named, said, your son will be named Ishmael, and he will be the father of many nations. And so she went back as she was told. And then years later, Sarah had a baby, and she had Isaac. And so it was around the time that they were celebrating Isaac. I think he was being weaned or something, and they were celebrating him. And again, Sarah was like, I don't want that woman around for this party. I want her out of here. And Abraham, he loved Ishmael as a son. And so he went to God, and God said, let her go. Now this time he gave her a water bottle, basically, and so sent her on her way with the child and said, you're out of here. And so again, she was on her own, surviving. And the God met her, and this time she ran out of water, put the baby under a bush, and said, I don't want to see him die, and went far enough away to not see up close. But it said that she wept and cried out, and God heard her. So not only did God see her and God spoke to her, but again, God heard her cry. And so I think that a really important way to get out of survival mode is to experience God, to recognize that he sees you, he speaks to you, and he hears your cry. And so that has been my experience over the years. There were times in my life where I felt joyless, and I wondered, hey, I love God and I'm serving God, I'm in ministry. Why am I so joyless? Why am I just feeling like every day is just a survival? And I learned that I was really not walking in the grace and love of God. I was trying to do everything in my self-sufficiency. And, again, it was seasons, like there was ups and downs. There were times of, that I had full of joy. I was a parent. I loved my kids. I wasn't walking around depressed even. Everybody thought I was fine, but inside is where I was struggling. And so I love this story because God does see us where we're at. He hears us. And I would just encourage you, if you want to even mention in the comments, again, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe and share with friends, but mostly comment in the comments if you've ever felt that way, what you've done for it. But I would definitely say an experience with God, and that means getting quiet. That means like getting time away from the hustle and bustle and the crazy and listening to him and knowing with confidence he wants us to come to him, and he does speak to us. And my life, here I am in my 50s, and again, I'm just going to say that there's no perfect relationship with God. There's no perfect experience, but progress is where it's at, and listening to God and taking time. I encourage you to do so, and have a great day.